get the RAC. I made the right choice going to my local Ford dealer.
To swim with the grey whale, Christopher Reeve follows his dream.
Oh, this is great.
Tuesday at 9 on Meridian.
Good afternoon. The widow of the murdered headmaster, Philip Lawrence, has spoken publicly for the first time. Frances Lawrence said her husband had been her rock and inspiration. She said their youngest child, Lucien, who's 8, was still hoping to see his daddy at Christmas. And she called for tough action against violence in schools. Tim Wilcox reports.
Philip Lawrence died exactly a week ago today, stabbed to death after rushing to the aid of one of his pupils being beaten up by a gang of youths outside the school gates. Today, his wife spoke movingly about his life and work and the traumatic effect his loss has inflicted on her family, in particular their young son.
Lucien is his father's son, and in his own little 8-year-old way, he's trying to ease the path for all of us. And he says to us that we're not to worry. In his innocence, he tells us that Daddy will be back on Christmas Day. And I think we all believe this a little bit.
She spoke of her love for the man who gave his life for others.
Philip was my rock. He was my inspiration. Each day of our life together, I admired him more and I loved him more. So,
and he recognized, she said, the dangers of tackling violence head on.
Like St. George, he knew that there were dragons out there, but he felt that you must confront them.
Philip Lawrence's death touched the entire country, but will be felt most keenly this Christmas by his family. Tim Wilcox, ITN.
Police are still trying to identify the victims of a freak road accident in which 5 people died and 4 were seriously injured. It happened near Newquay in Cornwall when the arm of a mechanical digger broke loose and smashed into oncoming cars. Ben Scottrick reports.
The roof of a car torn like paper. It's thought the arm of a mechanical digger on board a lorry broke loose and swung over into the path of oncoming traffic. 4 vehicles were hit, leaving a trail of wreckage a quarter of a mile down the road. Police, medics and firefighters all rushed to the scene.
It would appear that the people involved stood very little chance. I've been in the service for over 20 years and I can say without doubt it is one of the worst scenes that I've attended.
All the rescue workers have since been offered counselling to come to terms with what they found. 5 people killed, and in such a way that officers couldn't immediately identify all of them. Today, 2 of the survivors are critically ill at hospitals in Plymouth and Truro. Meanwhile, the lorry driver involved is still too shocked to help establish exactly what happened. Ben Scotchbrook, ITN.
NATO has formally taken over from the United Nations in Bosnia to enforce the new peace deal with 60,000 troops. The first British vehicles bearing the new initials of the implementation force have arrived in the Croatian port of Split, but freezing fog has prevented the arrival of 20 American planes in Tuzla. European leaders are expected to give their unanimous support to expanding the European Union at their summit in Madrid today. But the disagreements of yesterday are lingering, with John Major warning against a headlong rush into a single currency. Our diplomatic editor, James Mates, reports.
If John Major thought the other Europeans were losing their appetite for a single currency, this summit may have convinced him otherwise. The final communiqué from Madrid is understood to urge member states to press on fast with the newly named euro and to get work underway on designing banknotes and coins. The technical difficulties that the British believe could wreck a new currency are thought to get only the briefest mention. He does not appear to have won the argument here. At their session this morning, the leaders are discussing how to expand the Union into Eastern Europe. On this, Britain is, for once, in the vanguard, but many others are reluctant to commit themselves to expansion without knowing how much new members could cost the community's budget. British officials still insist their warnings about the dangers of rushing into a single currency are being taken on board. But whatever's being said in the privacy of the conference chamber, in public at least, the rest are showing nothing but enthusiasm for introducing the euro as quickly as possible. James Mates, ITN, Madrid.
That's the news so far today. I'll be back at 4:45.
Hello, good afternoon. Well, as you can see from today's wind flow chart, the air is still coming in from the east, and that's keeping things feeling particularly chilly for the south, where those winds are strongest. Now, by tomorrow, the subtle change with milder air pushing into the far southwest. Now, that change is occurring behind a band of cloud and rain currently across the West Country. That's only giving light patchy rain, but it's also giving us some sleet and snow, particularly on the higher ground. For the rest of the country, it's mostly dry, if rather cloudy, with the best of the brightness once again to the west of high ground. That's also where we're going to see the highest of the temperatures today, around 6 or 7 Celsius, but once again, much colder for the south. It's going to be cold for all of us tonight, with a touch of frost in places, while the sleet and rain nudges further northwards. Here's the summary.
Sponsored by PowerGen, generating electricity, whatever the weather.
Good afternoon. A lorry driver has been killed in a road accident in Wiltshire. His tanker and a van were involved in a collision on the A303 near Wiley. The road was blocked for 6 hours while the wreckage was cleared. Police aren't naming the dead man until relatives have been told. Vandals have forced the closure of a school in Hampshire. They broke into the boiler house at Oak Ridge Junior School in Basingstoke and damaged vital heating equipment. It's hoped lessons can be resumed on Tuesday. British Airways has come down to earth with a new campaign to combat pollution. The company has joined forces with the RAC to make sure the private cars driven by staff at Heathrow pass the clean car exhaust test. Tanya Shields reports.
British Airways likes to keep a close eye on its staff. Now it's not only monitoring their work, it's also monitoring their exhaust fumes. BA wants to make sure its workers' cars are within pollution laws, and in conjunction with the RAC, they're testing their staff's cars as they arrive for work. If they fail, they'll be offered a free tune-up.
We're showing here that most cars can be put right very, very easily. We can turn a gross polluter, as we call them, into a clean car in the space of about 5 minutes.
The portable monitors inventor from the University of Denver says in the US, strict emissions rules have reduced smog, and the same is happening here.
Things are getting better in this country. You have catalysts on your cars, and you're at least trying to measure the emissions on a routine basis. The problem is they're being measured at idle, and only once every year or so. And what you really want to do is control how the car is emitting as it drives along the road, not when it's tested in a garage every year or two.
The RAC estimate that 10% of cars make 50% of the worst pollution, but it's not always the old, cheap cars that are the worst culprits.
The link is actually to maintenance. We know very well that a poorly maintained car will be a dirty car. So we've seen some very old cars that are remarkably clean simply because they've been looked after properly. We've seen some new cars that aren't, and they haven't been looked after properly. It's as simple as that.
And the RAC warn that police can spot-check car emissions, and if your engine fails the clean car test, they can impose a stiff fine. Tanya Shields at Heathrow for Meridian News.
Police in Wiltshire are concerned about the increasing number of attacks on swans. Earlier this week, 3 were killed on the River Avon near Salisbury. Others have been killed and injured at Wiley. The sick birds are cared for at a special sanctuary. Nigel Burwood has this report.
This is the lucky one. Only the marks on the swan's head indicate how he was shot and almost killed. In less than 18 months, the Swan Sanctuary near Wimborne in Dorset has rescued 1,400 injured birds, most of them victims of deliberate cruelty. In Wiltshire, police are investigating the shooting of 4 swans which were found dead or dying on the River Wiley. They'd been hit by bullets from a .22 rifle. This bird survived, but only just.
My opinion, and the vet's, he was shot in flight. He was probably flying over, and someone just swung a gun around and tried to shoot him out of the sky, which they did.
Why do people do this to swans?
Well, the particular area he came from, people don't like them there. Now, their opinion is there's too many swans on their little patch of river. That's all I can put it down to.
And you are getting more and more of this to deal with.
This is the 5th one in 6 weeks we've had. The other 4, we had to put them to sleep due to the horrendous injuries. But this chap hopefully is going to make it, and we'll let him go back in the wild.
The sanctuary even has its own intensive